Hello, hello, everyone. And we are welcoming our co-host therapist and friend, and she's coming in right now. This is Minding Our Mental Wellness, episode number, I believe, number 13. I had to go back and double check that, but I believe it's number 13. And we're going to talk about election results and their effect on mental illness. Um, some people have actually said, I'm moving out of the country and have moved out of the country. So it's really had some deep feeling and circumstances for a lot of people out here in the world. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the feeling and the emotion and how people are processing it. How do you feel about it, Natasha? How did you feel? And what have you heard that people have said about it, and how has it affected them? Sister Natasha?
Well, for me, as far as my experience with people's reactions to the election, it pretty much shows how much a lot of people live in the realm of their emotions. Something, as far as the election goes, I never could really understand how people could get so emotional when it comes to politics. I mean, it is an off limits topic for family gatherings because I saw a post. It makes me think of a post that I saw. What's four words that could disrupt your Thanksgiving? And I put in the comments, I voted for Trump. They'll take out Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, okay? So I don't know when I'll be seeing some family members again if we say those four words. But yeah, it's so funny to me. But yeah, I just think it's very interesting of how people can get very emotional about something that's beyond their control. And I think it's a reflection of how much in their life, personal life, or even within their own soul, their mind, their emotions, their power to decide, that they may lack control as to why they've put so much energy into the things that are beyond their control as a form of a way of avoiding those things that they may need to address in their personal lives that they want to continue to suppress and ignore. So that's my little partake on it for now. And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to everyone's responses. This is going to be a great conversation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I believe so also. Uh, Times, what do you say? What have you heard about feelings and emotions that people have expressed? Brother Time?
Well, yes, sir. Um, uh, Mixed. I was out with somebody excuse me, y'all, suffering from some kind of crazy cough, but somebody last night was elated that I was at dinner with a fellow therapist on the island. Oh, how wonderful Trump was and all of this stuff. And of course, other people that I've talked to are in horror. People are packing up, literally trying to move out of the country, move to Spain and whatnot. Um, yeah, a lot of that going on.
Okay. Uh, Sister Jennifer, what are some of the things that you have heard, ma'am?
Well, I want to reframe the title because the topic that I would like to discuss is what we've been talking about. I just when you added mental illness and instead of mental health, that was because we're not just talking about people that have mental illness. We all have mental health or unhealth concerns and situations that can cause us to have mental health ups and downs, right? And so I want to make sure that we are addressing just all of the emotional responses in regards to everybody and their mental health after this and during this time of uh, President-elect going into office in January, right? I've seen, honestly, in session, because I don't have these conversations outside of session, I am intentional about preserving my energy and being in the moment, and that's not a in the moment type of concern of mine. So I don't have personal conversations about that. And if they try to bring those conversations up, as you've seen, Baruti, I don't engage in it, and I will get up and leave personally if I am uncomfortable, or we will, I tell you I want to talk about something else and it's not being respected, right? So for me, but in session, because that is an open, safe space to talk about whatever it is that you have concerns about, I think that people are fearful and afraid of the impact of this change, knowing the legalities and all of the things that will be taken away, possibly rights and things of that nature. So a lot of my clients are panicked, especially LGBTQ clients are depressed and severely anxious for valid reason. Women, and that is usually who I see, and that's what the concern is. Those are emotions associated with the fear of the unknown. Because what we do know is not supporting our goals sometimes in certain instances in regards to just how you're able to function in the world as we know it now, and then those possible changes later. Yeah.
The whole framework of this program and how it was designed is it's in the title, Minding Our Mental Wellness. And so we always want to look at things that will contribute to our wellness down the line, whether that is getting out what's in us, but we want to find a way to gear it towards wellness. And there are many ways to do that, is it not? And what ways do you that person that's starting to come in with a difficult conversation, what way do you try to get them back on track of wellness?
Are you referring to like in session or personally?
Well, you would tell them something that they would take home for personal to do, but also it would start in the session, I would assume. So both.
Okay. All right. Personally, if it's somebody that I'm having a conversation with, and I'm uncomfortable, I'm gonna say that. Like, I'm not comfortable with this conversation. I have clear boundaries about what I like to have conversations about. And if it's uncomfortable, then I don't choose to engage in it just because it incites an emotion that I don't, a number of emotions that I don't want to incite, like distrust or disappointment or confusion in those conversations, because we all have different opinions about it, and it's just not worth my energy for me personally. So I just say no. In regards to my clients, I just do the same thing. Tell them to focus on the moment. We don't have energy all the time to be having these deep conversations with people with differing values all the time. And this is the root of it. Values. That's what people are struggling with. There are different values and what you believe someone values or not based on who they voted for, or what is to come going forward. I think that's the root of it. And if that is not something that you were in the space to even have a conversation with, even a relationship where the conversation is not necessarily one that you need, like a coworker or something. Like, no, I'm not doing that. It's just not for, I work with you, that's cool. But all that other stuff, our values don't align, and that's okay. It's just, it's okay to just let people know where you are and if you have the energy for it. And then you make choices to have conversations or not, but not to prove a point, I think, or convince somebody of something different. Because that's where I'm seeing a lot of my clients stuff from.
So you straight up just say, okay, this is basically the boundary of what I want to talk about. But you say it in a gentle, kind of firm, gentle way.
Yeah, of course. I'm not comfortable with this. I like to talk about something else. It's just if we don't have to start out with a conversation like that, But if you notice it's going in a direction and you are uncomfortable with it, or you would just prefer not to, it's okay to say that. I'm not comfortable with this conversation. Let's talk about the weather today or something else. That is okay to do.
Understood. Natasha, have you seen different people? You said your own family would have some issues with some things that you said. Have you heard other people talk about that? And are they different generational, different generations and then different cultures? And do you see that difference among people talking about that? And how would you discuss it with them?
Well, how I observe and assess everything is really based on the level of maturity when it comes to communication. There's a group of people that are, it's like tantrum oriented conversations. They just want to have a tantrum, they want to be mad and angry and voice all of the things that they hate about so and so. And for one of the things that I would do to divert, just to put an end to it, especially if it's for the ones that's focused towards Trump, this is one of my jokes. I'm like, why get so upset when it's clear that he missed his calling? He was supposed to be a comedian. I just laugh all the time. So in that moment, they see that I'm not going to match their energy. I'm not going to come in that tantrum space with them. And then it'll shift the whole dynamics of the conversation. They don't even want to continue on because I turned it all into a joke and actually got them thinking about, like, well, you kind of have a point. And so it just shifts the dynamic. But then there's some that have bring different perspectives to the conversation that's transformative. And then it's those conversations that I'll actually engage in. Because, like Jennifer said, at the root of it, it's about values. And so, if a person is mature enough to talk about the certain issues, the reason why this person versus that one, and really be able to communicate and clearly define and identify their values, those are the conversations that I'll engage in, because we could have a agree to disagree conversation. It's not based on emotions, it's really based on clear thinking, logical. You thought thoroughly about your reasons why. And even if we may be different, it's an enriching conversation because it's the level of emotional intelligence and maturity that's in that conversation. So those are the two. That's how I really break down the groups of people that I see, regardless of the age. You know, there you'll see those type of groups regardless of the generation and things of that nature. So I try to divert those that want to be in a tantrum with a joke, and then those that are really clear about where they come from and why, I'll actually engage in that, because it's nice to hear and learn from others' perspectives, even when they're different from my own.
Same conversation times. The conversation about the cultural and the generation and how they, how they go about that conversation. And what do you, how do you engage with those people?
Give an example. I was at church. This is before the election. And there are people in there who were, praising Donald Trump and he's the second coming and all this kind of stuff. Well, I usually let people talk and I kind of don't engage in that type of conversation because it's such a hot topic. It's a no-go zone for me. I have a general rule in my personal life not to talk about politics with my friends because of that reason. And also, my other rule is not to talk about religion with people who are not, you know, like-minded. So I have a general rule. So when people cross that boundary, I'm like, Jennifer, um, and I've gone, and this is this is a long time ago. One of my best friends in Spring, he invited me over just to pretty much talk about this kind of stuff, and it was politics, and I we had dinner, and then he started in on me, and I'm like, man, I got up. I'm like, Jennifer, I literally got up and I chunked deuce and I left. And so he didn't. But once I drew that clear boundary, he don't talk about that stuff with me anymore. And that's been over 10 years ago. As far as now with this election and stuff that's going on, I'll get people who will say certain things, but in general, um, people are just stressed because they have issues with what's getting ready to happen. I will say that I'm a school teacher also. I teach math, eighth grade math. I've had more of a response from my kids, my students, than adults. I was in class one particular day a couple of weeks ago, and one of the kids in the middle of class was looking at their phone, and they're like, start talking about going back to picking cotton. And so I'm like, what are you talking about? And so that was a black student, and then another student was a Hispanic student, said, yeah, you guys are getting ready to go back to the plantation. And I'm like, what? And they showed me the text message. You remember when those messages went out right after the election? Several of my students got those in the middle of class. And so that became something to talk about in class. I couldn't avoid it. And we processed that quite a bit because they were talking about it as though, because these kids are what, 13, 14 years old. They have no knowledge about the struggle, if you know what I mean. So they're like, oh, I'm not going to do that and this, that, and the other. And it was more real to them. So therefore, we had to broach that conversation, have that talk. But as far as adults, it's been more of, I can't believe this has happened. What's happening to our country? You know, what are we going to do? That type of conversation. But it's usually with like family members and close friends and so forth, and the like. As a matter of fact, today I was showing somebody these coins that I saw on the internet with Donald Trump's face on them, and they have printed them up and so forth, and put like he's the next Moses and all this kind of business. So it's a lot out there. It's a lot of it's to me crazy talk, but it's coming from a lot of educated people, a lot of people with master's degree. I mean, like last night I was talking about. I was hanging out with this friend of mine. She's got a LCSW for goodness sakes, and she's in love with Donald Trump. And I'm thinking, man, this lady's off the deep end. You know what I mean? And so I just let her talk, and I just did the therapist thing. I said, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And that was all I said because I mean, what else was I gonna say? I mean, I'm like, oh, that's crazy talk. I'm not gonna tell her that. But I didn't add any fuel to it. So that's kind of my experience so far. And with the LBGTQ, I've got one client that's have some issues with that. But yeah, it's mainly the kids and a couple of colleagues and so forth that I found
Understood.
interesting.
Uh, Natasha, you were saying, how you process certain conversations that you have, whether they are logical or how they go about it. Do you think the emotional impact of the elections can foster greater empathy among communities? What you think, Natasha?
Ask me that question one more time. I want to make sure I'm
Okay, do
hearing
you
you
think,
correctly.
like you were having the conversation, if they come at it in a logical and an appropriate way to have a conversation instead of yelling, screaming, and using all that emotion, and y'all sit down and have a civilized conversation, will it bring about more understanding?
Yeah, it actually with those type of conversations, it tend to turn into a more solution oriented perspective conversation. By the end of the conversation, we're thinking, brainstorming things that we can do differently with our own personal lives and our own sphere of influence to be the change that we wish to see in the world. So it turns into a fruitful conversation because typically those who are well aware of their values and they're able to communicate their viewpoints and perspectives when it comes to politics and their reason why, they are the people of solution oriented type of people. They're people of influence that really want to make a change with their spheres of influence as well and not rely so much on political leadership. They're not looking to use them as a scapegoat for not taking responsibility for the things that they can do differently and how they can make an impact. So it actually does turn into a brainstorming session. Next thing you know, we're leaving with a couple of gems and ideas to implement in our lives moving forward. So yes.
We know that there are maybe two ways. If that might be one way, but the other way, which a lot of people are in that, in that park also, where they are caught up in their emotions, and that's where they're going to be. However, if we could say something that maybe in a soundbite or something that they could think about as they walk away, they may come back and try to have that conversation. Let me ask this also. Has social media really kind of drive this kind of emotion that people are caught up with? Sister Jennifer, what you think about that? Social media, the media, television, all of those things, and are people so caught up that that contributes to their mental health issues or the issues that they come up with? They're so caught up. What you think, Sister Jennifer?
I definitely think so. I think, that the media gives us messages. And if we consume those messages often, which, the phones that we have in our hands, the TV that we watch, and, just even interacting or communicating with one another, it's there and it's highlighted. All this, just like the Diddy stuff, we see and all that. And then we read what other people have to say. We are saying what we believe about what's going on. And then it all distorts our perception of reality. Because realistically, these are not right now issues. Now, you do got to protect yourself from things that you do, may have some concerns with, that are known changes that are going to happen, of course. But right now it's the holidays. That deserves let's enjoy what we have while we have it until January come, and then we deal with those issues. But the social media is not going to do that. And then it's people that's talking about their feelings there, and we're listening and watching. If you're not me, because I noticed that I check in with myself before, like my husband, before, like when the whole election was happening in November, he's very he watches a lot of news and stuff like that, and that changes my mood. I feel like it's manipulation, that they highlight the negativities in the news and things like that. So I don't spend my energy there, because that will impact how I function in the world right in that moment. So I know that day, or if I saw him on election day or any time around that watching this stuff, oh, I got up and I went in another room, or I put my headphones on. I had to make sure I preserve my energy, because that can distort my perception of people around me that have those signs in their yard, right? And how I interact. And it's still, we all neighbors, right? And we have to be mindful of still interacting with them in a way that they're just seen as human, which I think is one of the values that are disaligned in regards to who the president-elect is. And that's what I think the concerns that we have are. I mean, my neighbor is very adamant and communicative about what his beliefs are, his family. I love my neighbors. Our kids play. I'm not having no more conversations with my neighbors because we don't align in our values and beliefs. And I know I don't feel good especially when certain things are put on social media that I see, and so then I'm looking at people differently because I see you said this, and then I'm questioning, where your morals at? Like what? And so I have to make sure that I take a step back and just deal with the situation at hand so that I can be my best version of myself with integrity, and not with a biased view because of something that I saw them post or something that was implanted in my head because I watched it and I read about it that I saw on social media. Now it changed my perception. But everybody don't really recognize that could be an issue for sure.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were trying. She says, she looks at the world in black and white, and now she says, okay, these people didn't help and vote for my candidate, so I have an affinity against them. I don't want them around me. I don't want to talk to them. I don't like them because they didn't vote for my candidate. Now, that's her opinion. And she says she looks at things in black and white. And she was ready to be upset with me because I say, well, I guess I look at things gray because, people can one day have this opinion, then they can have something that they comes in between that day and the next day, and they have a little different take. And so yes, media contributes to that, and it can distort your understanding and how you look at the world if you look at too much of it, because they all of them have a slant. Brother Times, talk about the media and how it may affect a person's perception. Brother
Well,
Times, you hear me? Yeah.
yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, the media definitely can affect your perception, especially with these algorithms that they've got. It just feeds you the stuff that you either want to look at, or say you accidentally click on something, and next thing you know, you're getting these heavy doses of it. And I've noticed, like, I practice Christianity, right? And I've watched a couple of sermons and, so forth. And next thing I know, I'm being inundated with these crazy, advertisements and so forth. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what is this stuff? And yeah, it changes your mood. And I got to tell you something that happened to me last week, week before last. Um, no, it was last week because I was walking to my office downtown, and it was in the middle of the day. And I'm walking across, and I walk a little slow because, I got diabetes and stuff. And so I can't move as fast as I used to. But I'm walking across the street. I didn't step in the middle of the street. Like, I'm walking in the intersection. I'm being safe. Well, there's this old white guy who was at the stop sign on the other end of the intersection downtown. And what does this guy do while I'm crossing the street? He hits his accelerator. He hits his yeah, and accelerator, and he almost hit me. Literally, like, while I'm in the middle of the street, he slammed on his brakes. His bumper was like an inch from my legs. And then I get, I'm like, hey man, you're gonna run me over? I throw my arms up in the air. And I start yelling at the guy. Like, I'm not, and I told him, I'm not afraid of you. I said, so you're going to just run me over? And the old man looked at me dead in my face and he hit the accelerator and his truck brushed my leg. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally hadn't had that experience prior to the election. But since the election, this is the kind of stuff that's going on. And I'm a witness that I don't believe this would have happened had, say, uh, Harris had gotten elected. And I live in a very racist area down here in Galveston Island, and lots of parts of this area, there are people who've been saying it recent, like in the last week. Oh, the Klan is strong down here. Oh, this and that and the other. Now, nobody was talking about that before the election, but now all of a sudden, people are starting to say things, and so I'm like, yeah, it's made a big impact. I mean, more than just philosophical. Now I'm talking about, now I'm not afraid of anything, but I'm like, maybe I need to go and buy another gun. Maybe I need to start packing. See what I'm saying? Yeah, that's where my mind's at.
When I was talking to my friend, and she looks at things in black and white, and she was saying, it's this way or the other way. At the same time, there are people who have a more open approach, and they are going to continue that. Those people were always there, and there may be more of them that are open now, but there's always going to be people who are very, I guess, open, and that would be the best way to look at it. I'm going to look at it that the glass is half full instead of half empty. However, I am aware enough and understand enough that it's still a dangerous environment. And but you can't be so despondent and so down and afraid or anything like that. You got to have hope and believe. That's my personal opinion, but I certainly got to understand the reality, the history, and the environment that we are in. Sister Jennifer, what are some of the tools that you would share with people who have these fears, who have these concerns? What would you suggest for them to do?
Well, I'm going to share some appreciation for Mr. Tynes and his feedback, because I think that is what he described is what a lot of minorities are concerned about, because the re-election, with all the things like January 6th and the insurrection, like all of that, like it makes us question the country we live in and how unvaluable we are seen as minorities in it, especially when someone that is known to have racist views and behaviors or discriminatory or whatever else is able to lead the country a second time after we went through so much hate. It was an increase in hate crimes. It was an increase in, so I mean, and then all the things that I think benefit our communities as minorities is a lot of things like the Department of Education and things of that nature going to change. And so like that is inciting fear in humans like me. There are concerns. I've had a lot of difficulties with, especially being in the profession I am and looking like I look, and then where I live, like people are judgmental, and they are more comfortable with being that in public. And that, I think, is the biggest concern that most people have. And then again, with their rights being taken away that they have currently and they won't have later on. So that incites the fear. It's traumatic. It's devastating. Also, the suicide hotline. I don't know if y'all are aware, but there has been a significant increase in contact. They're overwhelmed at this point of the suicide hotline because of people and these fears, and then which later leads to depression when our body is in fight or flight all the time, right? So I encourage that we communicate in spaces where we feel safe to be able to do so and be supported. I also encourage doing daily activities that make you feel loved and where that solidarity is. Making sure that we're taking care of our bodies and our minds by just what we're consuming, what we are. And I mean that also by the social media that you referred to, right? Like we got to have limits on that, because that does change our perception of how we see the world and how we can function in it and our mood.
Can you kind of be specific on limits on social media? Or do you mean if it's helpful for you, actually get off or shut people off if they go the wrong direction?
Yes, definitely. It is okay to if you're mindful, and mindful is noticing and choosing, right? If you're mindful, then you can determine, okay, I'm feeling like I'm feeling uncomfortable, or reading this, I'm getting lost in it, and I've been here too long. I've been on here and I was just checking something, and then I've been on here for an hour. That means it's time to take a step back, because it changes how you think, how you feel, and how you function. It might need to be something else that you need to be doing with that time that actually moves you towards those values that you are concerned being respected or even acknowledged or aligned with other people. That is imperative to do, because if we don't, then we will be reacting a lot, because of the fear that we feel. And that anxiety, like I said, what it lasts is the anger and anxiety. They both give us energy to do something about it, to protect ourselves. And when we are always in that state, it turns into depression. Why? Your body tired. So being intentional about making sure that you're resting, you're eating things that serve your body, that you are actually moving your body, exercising, and doing things that actually address your mental state. Because when you're moving your body, it's hard to be thinking about whatever else it is that you're worried about in the future. So those things are imperative, but also being heard. Healing starts with being heard. If you are around someone that doesn't align with your beliefs, doesn't believe, they may think that you're being over dramatic or whatever else, and then you're not heard, then that's going to incite those beliefs to stay around and impact your functioning. It's important to find your community. There is so much power in solidarity. And so we have to, go and engage with those communities, and not necessarily the ones that are encouraging anger or irrational behaviors, but just people that are engaging, like Natasha said, that just, you can learn something from, but you got to be willing to. And you got to know when you're in a space where you can do that, because sometimes you ain't. Just being mindful and aware of where you are before you interact with those in those spaces. And if you feel that you aren't heard, then reaching out to somebody that you would be heard by, and just having a conversation about what you're feeling, not necessarily your frustration or anger or whatever about what is already done, but more of like, what, I don't know what to do next, that kind of thing. Just being able to be aware of what your emotions are, for sure.
Understand. Yes, powerful. Natasha, what are some of your feelings and perspective on how things are, what's about to happen?
Well, I've been so focused on me. I stay so focused on the things that I can control that I'm always living in expectation. I'm excited about what's happening in life, regardless of all the unknown that's happening in, the politics and the this and the that. I really like to just keep my daily focus on the things that I can control, And so when my focus is there, I remain in anticipation, excited, energized. That's just how I live my life, in a place of joy. And then I just do those things that Jennifer said. Like I like to go on my daily walks. That's one of the things that I do to keep myself stabilized emotionally when I don't have those emotional dips. I am mindful even with social media. I kind of dip in and dip out. And I'm mindful of what I'm eating. And those are the things that I'm excited about, because I track my goals in different areas of my life, my fitness goals, my faith goals, goals with my family and friends. So I'm excited. That's where I am. I'm excited regardless of the things that may happen on a global scale, or even in our society here. And yeah, and I just stick to a solution-oriented mindset too. So even when concerns do kind of arise, when I get in that mode of, oh, I may be concerned about this or that, I always try to break it all the way down to me. Okay, what can I do differently to dissipate the anxiety of the unknown in that area? What is it that I could actually control regarding that concern? And then I focus on that. Because if I focus on anything that's beyond my control, that'll keep me in a funk. And I just don't have time to live in a funky space. Especially if
Understood.
I'm one that's called to help bring people out. I can't be living in there with them.
Yes,
I'm gonna bring
ma'am.
you out, and I'm over there in the corner with you in the pity party. So, yes, indeed. So the
Understood.
joy of the Lord is my strength. Okay. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for
I just want to
asking.
say we as a people have been through so much that, I like to say we can survive just about anything because we've been through everything. And, we just getting stronger as a people. And as human beings, we have a great capacity to deal with so many things. And as you all are saying, if you don't stay in that space in your head where you worry, you're scared, and you bringing fear in, you stay in that spot, you can adjust and adapt to most anything. So that's the way I look at it. I'm a thinking man, and I say, there's a way I can think about it, work on it, and overcome most things. So I stay in that space and I try to make sure, and whatever's going on, there's a way to say, okay, I can be positive, I can make this work, and nothing is gonna totally hold me back. What would you say, Brother Times, to somebody who does have so much anxiety and they are scared? What would you say to them?
I would say stay in the present. Stay in the present. Stay in the now. Um, don't feed or don't provide that negative energy. Stop watching the news, um, especially network news and even local news. I refuse to watch either one. Um, and to feed your spirit, feed your spirit. I love that idea of going on nature walks and so forth, and mindfulness meditation and whatnot. Do those things, feed your spirit. I have a client that we talked about. This person, she's going through a lot of stuff, and she's having so many things going on in her life. And I'm like, well, I said, well, one of the things three things you need to do off the bat, you're not doing. You're doing everything else, but you're not taking care of yourself. There's no self care going on in your life. And she's like, huh. You know what I mean? And I'm like, just take 30 minutes, you know, 3 times a week. And we came up with 5 activities that she used to do, but she doesn't do anymore. And I said, okay, start doing that. I said, because if you don't, I said, you're not going to be there for your daughter. You're not going to be there for your fiance. You won't be there for your stressful job, and you definitely won't be able to continue in grad school. I said, so you have to, he kind of had a, I said, take time right now, hit the pause button and take care of yourself. I said, because that's going to feed all of these other areas of your life. So I would say that for anybody who's experiencing any kind of anxiety or even anger, um, or any, even in that case that I had to deal with this crazy guy, you know, I just had to like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to let that dominate my mind. You know, it happened, and you know what I chose to do? I chose to pray for the guy and keep going. I had video on it. My building manager pulled it up on tape and gave it to me. I could have filed charges on it, but I'm like, nope, not going to give him that power. So that's what happened. But yeah, I would say that for sure.
Understood. You know that there were times when I was going through some real struggle, and what I found is I came down to Galveston in the hot sun, and I waded in the water, and I put my hands in the air to God, and I found that so exhilarating. I, I was just there, and I was meditating, wading in the water, and that was so healing. And all that I was going through kind of wasted away. It waded away. And that was, so I would suggest that people try to find something where they can kind of go back into nature and to the God or the power that they believe in, and find a way to put that out of their mind, at least for a little while. We all got to go back and deal with the issues of our lives, but find a little space that you can kind of get more into the spirit of our creation, our self, our love for ourselves. And it's so many ways to do that, and everybody have their own kind of way to connect. Sister Jennifer, election results and their effect on mental health, what would be your strong word for people that are allowing that to affect them? What would be your strong word for that?
I think it's going to be important to align with values. I said that multiple times because it's important. When we live according to our values, we live a rich and meaningful life. And I don't mean financially rich, right? Like with substance. And
may I ask, what do you mean by values? Are you saying do unto others as you would have them do unto you? What values are you?
That's my
Yeah?
moral. That's what you described is more like morals, right?
Okay.
Values are what's important to you, what drives your behavior. Example, because I think the majority of us that are having responses and are confused by the outcomes and all of this of the election regard those values, and they have been communicated. Like Mr. Times, I think I noticed his values as empathy, respect, communication, and effective communication, community as his work. Same as Natasha. She respects and just is mindful, and mindfulness and being present is important to her, and understanding that we all are different, but being willing to learn and openness. Those are values. My value, I think that I struggle with most during this time is integrity, doing what's right even when nobody's watching. And we blatantly see the wrong, just the lack of unity, the lack of consideration for others, the just lack of accountability that the American culture didn't even, he don't even, he not held accountable for all the crimes or all the things that like just violating our capital, like those things. And that's what I struggle with, right? Accountability. Like that's how you earn my respect. That's how I know I can trust you. And if I can't, then I know that I have to protect myself. And I think that that's what a lot of people are also suffering with, but they don't understand what it is. And so then it's communicated with anger responses or withdrawal because they don't feel safe, with anxiety, right? And I know that once I've identified my values, I can make sure that my behavior aligns with that. And then sometimes I mess up. We human first, right? So sometimes we react, but I am intentional about going in the right direction. Okay, is this important to me? Like going cussing out my neighbor because I don't like signs in his yard. I want to do that sometimes, right? But I know that that doesn't align with me treating people like I want to be treated, or I have an understanding that that's his beliefs and he's proud of it, and just respecting that. And I just keep my distance and I stay over here. Those things I think is going to be most important. And when we live according to what is important to us, that's when nothing, no matter what comes around, like Natasha was saying, you can stay excited because you know where you're going towards. You know what's going to happen, no matter what comes your way, because you're going to be able to deal with it. Like you were talking about tuber rooting. So that's what I mean by that.
Understood. We have had a powerful conversation, and I would like everybody to finish out by giving a word on how you view what's happening, what's gonna happen, and your feelings that you want to convey to the audience out there, and share how they can get in touch with you also. Natasha, can you share your final word and your perspective on our subject, election results and their effect on mental health?
Yes. Just closing statements. Basically just practicing self-awareness. And I really like to challenge people to engage in some introspection, and really connect with themselves and not try to use anything external as a means to remain disconnected within. One of the things is that I always teach is that we have to be the first partaker of who we are. And so a lot of times when we see people and they live in the realm of their emotions, a lot of times they don't even stand for the values that they deeply hold, that they expect others to uphold. And so when I was listening to Jennifer really break down our values, it reminded me that when we're really mature and we're practicing doing the work to be authentic in and of ourselves, regardless of what's going on around us, we are the first partakers of our values. We are the first example and demonstrators of our values. But how can we demonstrate and be a partaker of that which we are unaware of? And so we have to come out of our emotions, journal, get all the emotional part out to get to a place to really be able to identify and connect with what's really at the root of these strong emotions, my strong perspectives come when it comes to this, that, and the other, so that we can really live a life where our deepest values is guiding us first, to where now we're able to connect and live in a world with people who have values that's different from us, because we're in assurance of knowing who we are and why we are the way that we are. We know our own context, and therefore we're more empathetic and open to learning someone else's context as to how they arrived to that opinion, that perspective, that set of values, whatever it is that they stand for. So those are my closing remarks, and it's always a pleasure. This was a nice, juicy conversation, and it was an example of how these type of conversations should be done Everyone honored one another's perspectives. And I like how Mr. Times, when he was speaking earlier about how to really navigate, reconnect with your self-care activities, one of the things that I heard that it's important to practice forgiveness. Forgive others. Don't hold on to that anger. Don't hold on to that offense. And give yourself grace. It really takes a level of grace to give yourself grace to take care of yourself first, to make yourself a priority amid all of the responsibilities that you have in your life. So, yeah, that's my closing remarks. Thank you, Bernie.
How can people reach you? I know how, but if you want to share with others.
I'm Freedom Coach Natasha Miller on all social media, Freedom Coach and Miller. And then Character for Life Global is the name of my business. And my website is www.c as in cat, the number 4, L as in love, global.com. Thank you.
Blessings. Thank you. Thank you very much. Brother Times, what's your final word?
My final word is going to be grace. To give grace to those people who don't see eye to eye with us, who have different values, as we were saying before. And then, of course, having grace enough for yourself, um, to give yourself grace, especially in these difficult times. We don't want to set ourselves up to live in that fight or flight mode, to be always engaged in emotion. I like how Jennifer talked about it, about the news, and about what she experiences when her husband watches the news. I've heard that before. I can relate to it, and so yeah, disconnect from that piece, and then with Natasha mentioned introspection, to be more introspective, and to focus in on our humanness. The media and other individuals like our neighbors who fly those great flags, and hold those banners up and do whatever, they objectify us, right? And that disconnects us. One of the things that we know, that creates and causes lots of trauma is disconnectedness. And so, yeah, to be connected with yourself through introspection and through to other people, and that allows us, I think, to be empathetic, uh, to be more careful in what we say to each other. Although, yeah, Jennifer, we want to, excuse my language, cuss people out, because that's a natural way of, hey, you know what? Let me give you a little bit of something here, but to rein it back a little bit and to say, no, this is a human being. Yeah, and so that's the piece I want to focus on. And then how do you connect with me? Well, I'm on Psychology Today under Christopher Times, and then I've got uh, a well, not a website, but I'm on Google, so you can Google me, Christopher Times MA, and my website ought to pop up my information anyway, so you can get in touch with me with that. And of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, which I'm never on Instagram, rarely on Facebook, but I'm there. So there you have it. And I'm starting an LLC, Broody, you guys.
Yes, yes, sir.
It's gonna be Agape, if I can share that name, Agape Marriage and Family Counseling. So my attorney tells me it's getting ready to be filed. It's gonna come due good, as they say, on Wednesday of this week. So I'm excited about that.
Sounds good. Sounds powerful. I look forward to it. Before I go to Jennifer, I want to share something. You mentioned about grace, and Natasha, you mentioned about forgiveness. That can be a process that can take a while. I have to share a story. I've told Jennifer many times about me and my sister, and we're at the point where, we don't talk. I still have hope. I wrote her a letter, but she just cast it off and said, I'm not going to read it. And then, I grabbed it off the wall and I said, okay, well, I'm going to throw it away since you ain't going to read it. And of course, I'm still open to having a conversation, a relationship with her, but it has to be two people. But I am open. I want to have grace. I want to have forgiveness, and I'll always look forward to that opportunity. Now, I must say another story that with my ex-wife, my daughter asked me today, are me and my ex-wife going to get back together? We go on trips and stuff. We and we work 95% together for our kids. However, there's a 5%, and the 5% is very ugly because there was a time when we were so much at odds, so much was going on that her son, her older son, he knocked on my door and, he threatened me, cussed me out. And I said, if you put your hands on me, I'm going to kill you. And at the time, I was serious. And that keeps us from going to the level where we can totally get back together. However, I want to get past that point, but it can be a deep thing. So grace can be a lifetime. Forgiveness and forgiving yourself can be a lifetime. So I'm not telling nobody they got to go and do it tomorrow. It's a process, and it's a hard thing, and it's something to work for. But because people have dramatic things that have happened to them, and I've had a dramatic thing that happened in my life, but I know where I want to go. I want to go to a place where we can get past those things. We can go to another level. We can go to a forgiveness in myself, and where I forgive what happened, what somebody did to me, or what I perceive somebody did to me. So I just wanted to share that, and it's not an easy process finding grace and forgiving others and forgiving yourself. It can be deep. I don't want to spoil the mood, but Sister Jennifer, please give your final word on this.
I gotta address what you said, right? I just can't. Yeah. Well, I support what you're saying. It just sounds like you need to have some more deep conversations and boundaries. It sounds like that there aren't boundaries and you felt unsafe and violated, and not necessarily physically, but emotionally. And if you feel unsafe, that means that you can't revisit that relationship with her because she is not implementing boundaries with her son for him to know what is okay and not okay to do with someone that's in her life. So that's all I'm saying.
I would have to share more to give you the whole perspective on it, and that's more than an hour conversation.
But I hear you, but I'm just saying that's what I heard. And that's
Yes,
I know you said that multiple times, and that's what I heard. And it's just, you deserve to be acknowledged for the discomfort, the all of that. And that I don't think you got either. So I'm just saying that'll be important to move towards in a conversation with her.
Well, as I said, that is the thing that is keeping us from the possibility of getting back together, because it's too deep in me. It's still too deep.
So that means you're not.
I know where I would like to go, but I'm not comfortable going there. And I'm aware of that. And I may never be, unless some other things happen, I may never be comfortable with that. And I just got to be honest with myself, because I'll share this. I don't go to Thanksgiving with the whole family because of that issue. They have Thanksgiving, but I go, this time I went and got a plate, and those feelings came back up. So it's still there. It's still there. And that was in, I believe, 2012. That's how long ago it was.
That confirms what I said, but Okay. I just, you don't have to get to that place, and I love that you recognize that you're not in it right now. That's a good, and it's important to continue to make decisions that make you feel more comfortable, but it might be important to have deep conversations later. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
in regards to what we've been talking about in the gist of everything, we talked about values, we talked about um also being present in the moment. Each one of us talked about that. And I have this little saying that I like, and it might be a little bit derogatory, but y'all gonna have to get over it. So, if you got a leg in the past and a leg in the future, all you can do is shit on the present moment. And that leg, I mean, the past one is we've been through this whole thing with Trump before, right? And because we've been through that, there are fears like people getting real comfortable with racism and all the things that change, and people, impacting just everyday functioning and normalizing just saying anything to other humans that Mr. Times was talking about, right? We got to understand that we're all human at fault, no matter what else. No matter what else you believe, we human first, and we all have the same needs if you just get down to it. So that is that past. And then we have those traumatic experiences that I think we all did because COVID was and is, right? And it has impacted our now. So that's what that past leg is. And the future one is just we don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of the times that's what the fear is. And people are afraid of that right now. And I understand why, because we don't know what's going to happen if the traumatic things happened before. We're afraid of what might happen. And that still causes us to shit on the present moment. So to be able to move those legs together and where you at right now will keep the shit inside and also allow you to preserve your moment and enjoy what you can control right now, like Natasha kept saying, because that's the only thing that we really can control our moment. And we can always improve it by our choices and being mindful of what we need in that moment. So I really enjoyed the conversation, everybody, today. I had reservations for sure and concerns, and I think we all did. I know you did, Baruti, and it turned out to be a very insightful, not personalized or not based on an agenda or about beliefs about why he was elected and all that, because that's what I was not going to talk about. And I really felt that the whole purpose of talking about our experiences and what we recognize and also the emotions associated with it and the behaviors that come from it was really great today. So thank you, everybody. Natasha.
Well, thank you, and thank everybody. And do we have ideas for our next show? Anybody? Do we have ideas? Well, we could think about them, and if you all come up with an idea, please text me or message me, and we will decide, and we'll talk about them, and we'll come up with our good conversation of what we're going to talk about next. Do you want to tell them about Adoring Counseling?
Yeah. You can reach me or the other two therapists that work with me at adoringcounseling.com. We're on all social media platforms except Twitter. So Instagram,
It's
TikTok.
X now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started with that. But Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok is at Adoring Counseling. And yeah, we'll have those conversations in therapy if you need some support about what you're experiencing and your concerns are going forward, for sure.
Thank you. Blessings, everybody. It was a beautiful conversation. And Sunday, once a month, we talk about minding our mental wellness. All areas in dealing with mental wellness. And we want to get to that place where we are better and we're helping people. We're helping people who are listening. I get people all the time who have heard us. We're on Facebook right now. And if somebody has put a comment in, I will reach you. I will let you know the comment if it was addressed to you, or if it was just addressed to everybody, I will share it with everybody. So we thank you. Any last word, anybody? Well, thank you very much. We'll see you Sunday once a month. We'll let you know when that time is. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.